Okay, let's go ahead and get started. It's about 12:01, and I want to stay on time, on schedule. I appreciate you being on today's webinar. As I said a minute ago, if you hadn't joined us then, my name is Damon Latanzi. I head up the sales team here at DMI Marketing, and we're going to spend the next 30 minutes or so together talking about really what to us and to our advisors who are selling this into their clients is probably the most exciting product introduction that we've seen in any of our memories. And I titled the webinar here, and I had tried to have some fun with it, which is we're seeing a lot of agents bringing over their contracts to us to sell this product because chances are that your IMO that you may be doing business with today, if it's not DMI, does not have access to this proprietary product. But you know, at the end of the day, what I hope that you get out of this webinar is really to see the power of how this IUL can help your clients. And that sounds kind of trite and trendy. So what I'm talking about is a product and a solution that's going to put more money into your clients' pockets. Because at the end of the day, crediting methodologies and this feature and that, you know, clients probably don't really care too much about that stuff. I mean, we care a lot about it as wholesalers, and you care about it as advisors, but your clients are trying to solve a need. They need income in retirement. They need security. They need safety. They need not to lose their money. They need to be able to access their money when the time comes. The mechanism by which we do that, you know, that's not their focus. So I'm going to try to build this story here over the next 30 minutes of how and why this product is going to put more money into your client's pocket. And in turn, you can take that story to your clients and to your prospects and show them a solution that's going to put them in a better position, because that's all that matters at the end of the day. The rest of it is, you know, math and insurance company stuff and jargon. Put more money in the client's pocket at the end of the day, and they will be happy, and you will have done the best that you can do for them. So let's jump in and talk about it. If you have a question, you can type in the meeting system. I will try to answer it. If I don't have time, don't worry. The GoToMeeting system records all the questions, and we will call you after the webinar, and we will get you an answer to your question. So I apologize if I don't get a chance to answer it. It's not because I'm ignoring you. I just want to keep us on track and on time. So before I get into the specific product, I just want to take a little trip down memory lane and remind all of us how powerful universal life is, right? We're talking about an index universal life product today, and obviously that fits into the broad category of UL, but no other product has the flexibility of UL, right? You can stop payments, start payments, skip payments, adjust payments. Of course, there are limitations to that flexibility, but you know, that gives your clients and you the ability to change things down the road that might fit their circumstances. So we could increase the death benefit, maybe we decrease the death benefit. And there's a lot of reasons why we might do that, but let's not forget that UL as a product category has this incredible flexibility built into it, and that flexibility provides real benefits to you and your clients if circumstances change, or to design the case a certain way to get more money for your client, or whatever it might be. So there's a lot of good flexibility in there. But let's start our discussion of this product story with a look at the risk-reward spectrum, right? Because what a lot of clients want is they want growth and they want guarantees, right? They want the best of both worlds. Well, unfortunately, those two goals aren't always compatible, right? If you think of, on the one hand here, you know, growth on the right side of the screen, that might be VUL. Oops, sorry, went too far. That might be VUL. It might be mutual funds. It might be individual stocks. It might be any one of 100 different products out there. Growth is important. Growth is good, but we all know what comes along with growth, right? And that's risk, right? Many people do not and cannot afford to lose money. Either they don't want to or they can't afford it. So yeah, growth is good, but it comes with some risk. On the flip side of that, we've got guaranteed products. Maybe that's whole life. Maybe it's guaranteed UL or index UL. Maybe it's just putting cash in the bank or CDs. Guarantees are good. Well, the problem with guarantees is that fixed interest rates are just so painfully low these days that, you know, if clients parked all their money in the bank, they would literally earn nothing. They wouldn't get the growth they need, and that could impact their retirement negatively. So the question is, how can we get a solution that best bridges the gap between growth on one hand and guarantees on the other. Right? Can we do that? And the question, that's the question I hope to answer today, and my answer is going to be yes, we can do that, but how we do it and what product we use, there's big differences for how we do that, how we can bridge that gap. The insurance company behind this product, and the product is called the Balanced Growth Advantage Index Universal Life, right? It's a big mouthful, Balanced Growth Advantage. We call it the BGA for short. It's issued by Minnesota Life, and the Minnesota Life story is really a great story. And if you think about what a client, what a consumer out there wants in their insurance company, they really want three things. They want a big company, they want a strong company, and they want a company that has a long track record. So they want big, old, and strong. If you kind of think of it in consumer terms. So Minnesota Life has over $1 trillion of in-force insurance on the books, so they're big. Hundreds of thousands of policyholders. They're old. They've been around for about 135 years, and they're strong. I mean, their financial strength ratings here, which you can see on the screen, including the Comdex here, right? They're A+, they're AA. They're very highly rated, and the Comdex is off the charts here. Life insurance and index universal life is a long-term proposition for your client, and you've got to feel good, and they've got to feel good about where they're putting that money. So this product is issued by Minnesota Life. It's only available to a very select number of firms like ours, and that's an advantage for you because your competitor, the guy or gal next door who's selling insurance is probably not going to have this product. And so that gives you a competitive advantage when you're bringing this solution, bringing this BGA to your clients. So let's keep building on this story of the product here. And what you're looking at here is just the plain old S&P 500. These are the annual returns from 1950 through the end of last year. And what you're seeing on the screen here is the volatility out there, right? Markets may average 7 or 8%, right? We could say, okay, over this period of time, if I averaged all these numbers together, that's 8%. But clients don't see a linear 8% return in the markets, do they? No, they ride this roller coaster up and down. The market's up one year, down one year, up one day, down one day, right? We call it the emotional EKG because your client's heart rates ride this volatility up and down, and when the market does really well, for example, up here, your clients are ecstatic, they're great, they're euphoric, and when markets crash, for example, down here, they're despondent, they're upset, they're panicked. And what do? What do clients do? Well, they do the wrong thing at the wrong time. So conventional financial planning wisdom says that we should sell when we get to these peaks or sell on the way up, and when the market's crashing down, we should be buying more. Well, that sounds great in theory, but you guys know on the webinar that clients are driven, we're all driven by our emotions, and those emotions force us to do the wrong thing at the wrong time. So that's a problem, right? That volatility is a problem because the markets may average 8, but that's not what the market's doing every day. So along comes capped products, and this red line is a 12.5% cap, index universal life, a hypothetical product with a 12.5% cap. This same story could apply to index annuities. But look what happens with the cap here. I'm going to talk about the good and the bad of caps. So when the market craters, if the market's down here where I just made that yellow mark, if the market's down -25, let's say, and the client earns 0, man, that's pretty good, right? Market's -25, your client calls you up and is like, well, what happened? You're like, don't worry, you're just going to earn 0 for this year. They're like, whew, that sounds pretty good. So that's, on the downside, caps look fine, but here's the problem with caps, and I'm going to highlight up here in this market where the market did 40%. The market does 40%. If the client has a 12.5% cap, what do they earn that year? Well, they earn 12.5%, right? We all get that. That's a big problem because there's a gap in there. There's a logic gap there. So what do you mean the market did 40 and I only got 12.5%? What happened to the rest of that return? Did the insurance company keep it? You keep it? What happens to it? So caps aren't intuitive. They may have understood what you were talking about when you sold them the policy on day one, but year 3, year 4, year 2, they have no idea whatever it was that you told them. They can't remember it. All they know is that it doesn't make sense how it works. So you got 2 problems. One is how does a client make sense of that? And then number 2 is, when the market has big up years, and we all know the market's going to have big up years, it's going to have big down years, but it's also going to have big up years. When the market has those big up years, your client is not meaningfully participating in that return. And if I boil that right down to what I talked about in the beginning, that means less cash in their policy, less cash in their pocket, less money in retirement, less income, whatever you want to phrase it as. That's real, right? The cap has a real negative impact. So when we say, if a client asks you, well, gee, how much does the cap cost? You say, oh, no, there's no cost to the cap, right? It just limits your upside. I would say that there's actually an incredibly steep cost to using a capped product, and that cost is the difference in the return you could have gotten with something else versus where the cap product limited you. So if we look at the same S&P 500, I've now added the green line. The green line is the BGA product. So same example, the market bangs out a 40% return here. Your 12.5% cap would have left your client with 12.5. Look at the green line. The green line is almost all the way to the top of that 40%. Now, it would be great to get all the market with none of the downside, but that's a tough product for insurance companies to build, right? All the upside, none of the downside. They haven't quite figured that one out yet. But what we're doing here is giving your client a lot more of the upside. So don't worry, I'm going to get into the details of the methodology, but I want to build this story at the conceptual level. If you don't believe the markets are volatile, big ups, big downs, then, wake up to reality. I don't mean to be offensive, but that's not what the markets are volatile. Why don't we use a product that's built to capitalize on the volatility, that's built to perform in the kind of market that we live in? We live in this crazy up and down roller coaster. The product has to perform in the market in which we live. Okay. Let me say the same thing a different way. So let's look at years 1995 to years 2014, and we're gonna look at oops, sorry, my highlighting's a little off. We're gonna look at a 13% cap. So how many years between 1995 and 2014 would the S&P 500 have blown through a 13% cap? The answer is about half the time. I'll save you trying to count it up. So half the time, and that's what these green bars represent, half the time the S&P returned a level beyond the cap. The numbers you see here at the top of the bars, that's how much additional return above the cap the S&P did. So here in 1995, the S&P did total of about 35%. That means the client left about 21% on the table if they bought a capped product. So that's what all these numbers above the green bars represent, is how much additional return your client would have gotten. So half the years they would have left return on the table, and then when they did that, on average, they would have left about 11% average annual return on the table in terms of what the S&P actually did. So the quick answer is a lot of years and a lot of return is left on the table, right? About 11% on average every year. That's going to add up, and that's going to show up in the cash value over time. So this is the same story I was telling you before, which is the market's going to blow through the cap level. The only question is how much of that return is your client going to capture because of the product that you sold them, or how much of that return are they going to leave on the table. I'm going to jump out of the presentation here real quick and show you a couple PDFs. And I've loaded these PDFs into the GoToMeeting system. So if you look in that GoToMeeting portal, you'll see I've loaded 2 PDFs on there. You can click the link and download those PDFs. Don't worry if you can't figure it out. These are pieces that our life sales team can send to you here. But I want to just show you the same story in a different way. And just for a minute, focus on this middle area here. This is 20 years into a hypothetical policy. The gray bar is the cash value in the capped product, and the orange bar is the cash value in the BGA product. So on this particular strategy, the client would have had 54% more cash after year 20. Excuse me, 55% more cash. So, Mr. or Mrs. Client, would they rather have $644,000 in cash, or would they rather have $415,000 in cash? Well, I know it's a stupid question because, of course, they want the more cash. So when we talk about how do we translate those percentages into what it means inside your policy, this is what it means inside the policy. Maybe it's 55% more cash. If we looked over 10 years, it's 27% more cash, right? There's lots of different ways we can slice and dice this, but we're talking about real money here, folks, real money in your client's pocket. If we look at the 5-year reset bucket, let me erase these drawings here and come back at this. If we're looking at the 5-year, and there's different resets, I'm going to get into that, don't worry. If we're looking at the 5-year reset, there's potentially double the cash in this particular example, $850,000 versus, again, that $415,000. So don't get caught up. I know I'm moving quickly here. We'll send you these pieces, and you can digest the whole thing at your own speed. But I want to show you that this is real cash, and it really matters. There's going to be a lot more of it in there. This is really important. You know, if a product's too complicated and you can't get it, and you can't explain it to your client in simple terms they can understand, then you're just probably not going to sell it, right? And so one of the great things about this product is it's easy to sell because the growth engine, the crediting engine, works like clients think it should work. So let me just walk through a couple bullets here. We get it. You know, life insurance is a complicated product anyway, and when you add index UL, now you've got all this jargon, you know, caps, averaging, look back, multi-average. It's like the client's head's ready to explode. This BGA product, you'll see this, and I'll show you this in a minute. It works like a portfolio concept. You know, part equity, part fixed. Just think of a pie chart, and I'm going to show you that pie chart image in a couple minutes here. The client's going to get it because it works like other financial products and models work, right? People like what's familiar, and they can make sense of what's familiar. So when we can show them a product that looks and feels familiar, that's going to help you in that process. It's going to be simple to explain, and we like to use this word when we describe it, which is intuitive. Intuitive in this context means it works like the client thinks it should work. It credits interest and grows their money like the client thinks it should when you explain it to them. I'm not saying life insurance isn't complicated. I'm saying let's try to make it as uncomplicated as we can so the clients can get why this product can help them get ready for retirement, create income in retirement, you know, which is really at the end of the day what the client wants. So I'm going to take this from a virtual level, and over the course of 3 or 4 slides, I'm going to work down into the nuts and bolts here so you can really see how your client's money grows. So here's the really big picture of it. Think of a portfolio. We got an equity piece. That equity piece is the S&P, right? Plain old S&P 500. Probably all your clients, they know what that is. It's not some, you know, newfangled crazy index with, you know, it's the S&P. And then the portfolio has one other piece, which is a fixed, right? Think of that like a cash piece. Only this fixed piece happens to be paying 3%, which would kill any cash or CD or money market out there. So it's a simple portfolio. The S&P piece and the fixed piece. $35 fixed. Hold on one second. Having just a brief technical moment here. 1 second. Sorry about that. I had a brief technical glitch there on my end with the system. Hopefully you can all see the screen. We're back on here. So what's different is the mix between the S&P and the fixed rate. And you can see as the reset period gets longer, you get more S&P. The longer the reset period, the more upside potential there is inside of there. So let's just for a minute focus on the pie chart. Here's your pie chart. Most of the action that we're seeing is the 2-year and the 5-year reset because the allocations are better. So think of a portfolio, like a managed money portfolio. We got part S&P, we got part fixed or part cash. We're going to subtract out a cost. In this case, it's a spread of 1%. It's not a fee, it's a spread. So if there's no interest earned, then there's no deduction for it. So minus a spread, right? That's really those are the mechanics. Part equity, part fixed, take out the cost, and then at the end of it, there's a participation rate at the end. Clients have no idea what a participation rate means, so there's different ways you can describe it, but I like to say after you do this simple calculation, it's like you get a little bit more return than that. They're giving you like a little extra kick or a little extra juice, a little extra return on top of that. Participation rate is a great term for wholesalers and advisors to throw around with each other, but I don't think clients really, they don't care and know what that means. So these are the pie charts you're working off of here. Let me for a minute focus on the 2-year. I'm just going to walk you through an example of that. So let's just focus here on the 2-year pie chart, for example. Okay, 85-15, 1% spread. At the end of that calculation, we're going to give the little kicker on there. So let me now walk you through a real-life period of time, and I'm going to feed actual S&P numbers through this calculation so you can see it step by step. So that's going to be very specific. So I want to look at a period of time here from 2013 to 2014 when the S&P did really well. Over that period of time, the S&P did almost 43%. So if you're wondering why I picked that period of time, you're probably thinking like, well, yeah, you cherry-picked a really great period, Damon. Of course it's going to look good then. But my point is, and let's go back to what I said in the beginning, which is the S&P is going to have big up years. It's going to have big periods of time when it's up. It's going to have bad down years. The product's got to be built to capitalize on how the S&P generates returns when it has those big years. So yeah, I did cherry pick a good period of time, but I did it for a specific reason. So let's follow this 2-year period of time here when the S&P did, 42, almost 43%. Okay, so follow me here. 85% allocation in the S&P. The S&P did 42.8%. So we just do the multiplication, 85% times 42.8. That's 36% and change. You'll have to just trust that my math is accurate here. You can verify it on a calculator afterwards. So there's our S&P component. Here's our declared rate. 15% of our portfolio is allocated to declared rate, paying 3% over 2 years. Right, 3% a year for 2 years, 15%. Trust my math. That's almost 1%. So let's just stop right there and add them together. So right there, we're at about 37%. This is literally how any portfolio would work, right? 2-piece portfolio, S&P fixed rate. You add the returns together, boom, there you go. Let's subtract out the cost, right? 1% each year. Think of managed money. They're going to get charged the cost. In this case, it's a spread. So after 2 years, the client's got a 35% return. I'm just going to pause there for a minute and let you absorb that. It's a portfolio with a charge, a 1% charge. Okay, this is literally how, I don't care if you had a portfolio of mutual funds, of managed money, VA, whatever kind of portfolio. What did the pieces do? What's the cost? Boom. And then simply at the end of the term, we're going to give them that little kicker, that little juice. It's a 10% increase to it. So at the end of the day, over this 2-year period of time, the growth inside their cash is almost 39%. So the S&P did about 43, they got about 39. That's the power of the product. The market does not generate a linear 8% return. If it did, go definitely sell the cap product. If all the S&P did was 8% flat every year, this is not the product, right? But that's not what the S&P does. That's not how markets generate returns. I know you're probably getting tired of hearing me say that, but it's so important that we're on the same page about that. That's the engine, right? This is like the Ferrari of growth engines inside this product. That's I hate to call it magic because it's not magic. It's just product innovation and product design and structuring the product to work how the markets generate returns. So that's the growth engine. The second really unique feature here is called earn credit when credit is due. And sometimes this takes seeing it a couple times for it to click. So if this doesn't fully click this part, it's okay. You can watch the recording of the webinar. We'll call and follow up with you here. But just think about this for a minute. Why should your client lose interest that they've earned when they access their money? Why should that be the case? Because that doesn't make a lot of sense. That's not intuitive. So what do I mean by that? Well, let's look at a traditional life policy. Let's say your client takes a $5,000 loan at some point during the policy. When they pull that money out, do they get interest earned on that? If you pulled it out in month 9 of a 12-month reset, do you earn any interest on that money that came out? The answer is that you don't, right? So no credit is applied. The BGA product does not work like that. If we take that same $5,000 loan, whenever it is, let's just say hypothetically that the S&P were up 10%. The S&P could be up more, it could be up less, but let's just assume for purposes of this discussion, the S&P was up 10% when the client triggers that loan. And let's say that 10% S&P return translates into a strategy return of about 8%. So just pretend like we did the math on the prior slide with the pie chart and the all that stuff. We did that math, and that math came out to 8%. So what happens inside the BGA, client takes the $5,000 loan, they get a credit applied back to their cash value of $398, which is the return, 7.95%, multiplied by the $5,000. So when the client triggers the loan, they get the $5,000 check, and simultaneously their cash value is pumped up by $400. Right? That's called earning credit when credit is due. Right? The other way is really not, why should the client lose out on the return? So what's really great about it is that the reset period isn't over yet in my example over here on the BGA, but because of how the product's built, they're tracking the gains to date in the contract on withdrawals and loans. They're doing it for COIs as well. So COIs, as you know, are happening all the time in a life policy every month. So let's say over a year period, the client had $2,400 in COIs, right? So about $200 a month. There's no credit being earned when those COIs are coming out. On the BGA product, same example here. If the S&P were up 10% and that translates to an 8% return, this client's getting a $200 index credit applied back to their cash value when those COIs are charged. Now, is this going to make or break the client in 1 year? No, of course not. But if you add this up over the 15, 20, 25 years or more that your client will own this policy, those credits are going to be really important because the COIs are happening, right? The COIs are going to be going on for many years. The only question is your client going to benefit from this earned credit when credit is due, or are they not going to have any credits applied? Back in June, we had a meeting of, I don't know, maybe 75 advisors here in Boston, and I was up doing a version of this presentation, and as I'm doing it, as I'm describing this thing, I'm looking around the room, and you can see there's kind of a perplexed look on many agents' faces, and then as they get it, as I'm watching their faces and it's starting to click in and it's sinking in, it's like, whoa, wait a second. There's no other life policy that does this. This is really incredible. Your clients might not get any of this stuff. You might not be explaining this to your clients, but that's okay. It's validating for you, the advisor, that this is a solution that you should be looking at and talking about with us at DMI, and then in turn talking about with your clients, whether you talk about this particular feature or not. That it might be over their heads, so to speak, because they don't know the mechanism that's going on inside the policy. But you can tell them, hey, this is a really great benefit that no other policy has, and all it's going to do is help you have more money at the end of the day. The client's probably going to think like, wow, that's great. I like more money. All right, let me wrap this up here. I need about 2 more minutes of your time, and we'll be more or less right on time. There's more to the product than just the growth engine and that earning credit when credit is due, but it would take me too much time and to do it on a webinar. But I just want to talk about 2 things really quickly. One is the premium deposit account. So I want to put this in some context here. A lot of advisors we work with are in the business of moving client assets. So if you're a money manager, if you're a financial advisor, right, you're gathering assets. You take clients' assets from place A and you bring them over to one of your solutions. Or if you're a big annuity writer, you're repositioning assets. You take assets from a bank, from another annuity, from a whatever, and you move those assets. You might not be in the business of telling clients they need to pay annual premiums and incur a cost. So what the premium deposit account allows you to do if you're an asset gatherer is the same model. You can gather the asset. Let's say it's a $50,000 CD. You can take the asset, you put it in Minnesota Life's premium deposit account, lump sum, and then the premiums to the policy are fed out of this account. So that allows you to have the same business model. You move the asset, and then it feeds into the life insurance policy. The money that's left in the premium deposit account is earning a really competitive interest rate, like upwards of 2.75% in that neighborhood. So it's a great way to have the client earn extra interest on their money and for you to do business the same way that you've done of moving assets into the premium deposit account. You also avoid creating a MEC, right? You avoid screwing up the tax benefits of life insurance. You avoid pumping up the death benefit too high. If you just dumped a big single premium into a life policy, you can create design, product design challenges around it. Sometimes that makes sense, and this product can do that, but it might make sense to use that premium deposit account as a feature. The second feature I want to talk about is the long-term care rider. There's a fully underwritten long-term care rider on this product. So not only do you get the growth engine and the other stuff, you can really sit down with clients and address the need for, hey, let's hope this never happens, but what's our plan if you, Mr. Jones, or you, Mrs. Jones, if one of you has to go into a nursing home, or if one of you becomes sick or injured or ill, how are we planning for that? And what we're seeing is that, and you're seeing this as advisors, there's a big move away from traditional long-term care for a lot of reasons, right? Traditional long-term care can be great, but there's a lot of problems with it that we don't need to go into. I think you know what they are. But this life with long-term care benefit, man, it's just going gangbusters because it helps solve the problem without a lot of the other challenges of traditional long-term care. So whether your client can't perform 2 of the 6 ADLs, right, they can trigger this rider. If they have a cognitive impairment, they can trigger the rider and access money. At the end of the day, they're accessing money to help pay for those and offset the cost of those benefits. I'm not going to get into the nitty-gritty details of the rider. Our sales folks can help you do that, but I'll put this in some additional context, which is traditional life insurance sales have been flat to down, maybe a little bit up, a little bit down, but over the last 5, 6, 7 years, life sales have been pretty flat. But life with long-term care rider sales have been up double digits now for about 6 years in a row. Something is resonating in here with advisors and their clients, and it's that people are scared to death of what happens if they go into a nursing home and what does that mean for their life savings, because we all know that those expenses for nursing homes are just like off the charts high. Just destroy somebody's life savings very, very quickly if they're in a home or a facility for several years. We've got a number of important resources for you. I'm just going to pop these up on the screen. Probably the most important one here is our life sales team. Right? These folks are working with advisors like you every day, helping them understand the story, where it fits, who's a prospect for this kind of solution, who's not a prospect, and then getting you the tools and the pieces to be able to go see your clients and write a case. So if you're not working with one of our life sales consultants here in our office, I'd encourage you to pick up the phone, and I'll give you our number here in a minute. We've got multiple marketing pieces and concepts behind this product where you can use this product, whether it's retirement supplement or college planning or for business owners, all kinds of conceptual marketing pieces you can use. We just had a big training meeting here in Boston. There's going to be other training meetings throughout the year, and we'd love to have you come out to one of them and spend a couple of days with us and really get into this product story. We created a training video, and that video is, you'll get to see my smiling face in that video. And the video is really focused not so much on the nuts and bolts, but how we can help you tell this story to your clients. So that video is, 15 minutes long, and what's great about a video, you can watch it, you can rewatch it, you can fast forward, you can skip parts, you can go back to parts, but we've got a lot of great feedback from our advisors and agents watching this video, and some of them watch it before they go out to make their first sale, some of them will watch it again as they go out and make additional sales, but if you're a visual learner, you like to see stuff, hear stuff, and review it again, this training video is a great way to do that, and we've really tried to use the language that you can use with your clients to stay away from the wholesaler advisor jargon that we might use and focus on what your clients care about. So that video has been very well received and helpful to our agents out there. All right, bring this down. I'm 5 minutes late. I apologize. Here's our phone number. Really, the ball's in your court. If you want to learn more about this, if you want to see if this is a fit for your client or your practice, give us a call here at DMI. Talk to one of our life sales consultants. We've recorded this webinar. We don't send the presentation out, but the webinar is recorded so you can see the whole thing again. Many of the graphics I've used inside the webinar or I showed are available as as standalone pieces, so don't be concerned like, wow, there's great stuff in here, I can't get it. You can get a lot of it, but it starts with talking to one of our life sales consultants. So with that, I'll say thanks for your time and your attention. Really appreciate it. I know when you're on these webinars, you're not talking to clients or meeting prospects, so I get it's valuable time, and we hope to see you again on an upcoming webinar. Thank you.